this point.
Joining me now is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He's on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. Is it time for the United States to accept and recognize that North Korea is, in fact, a nuclear power?
Sure, yeah, if you're ready to recognize Iran as a nuclear power, South Korea to become a nuclear power, Japan, Brazil, Mexico, any country in the world that decides they want to have nuclear weapons now will never be able to stop if we just accept North Korea. It's always amazing to me, by the way, to hear these former members of the administration like Mr. Kirby get on there and say now that this confrontation of North Korea to say, look, we can't have nuclear weapons is somehow Pollyanna, when in fact he was part of an administration that I never heard anything about North Korea under the prior administration. And I'm not one of these guys, by the way, that goes back and points at the prior administration to try to take heat off the current thing. But this is where we are today. And so these folks that are on TV saying any confrontation against North Korea, any attempt to bring China on board, it's just not going to happen. We need to take a step back, take a deep breath, and figure out how to all hold hands and get together and get rid of this. It's not going to happen.
But you do acknowledge North Korea apparently does have these weapons.
Yeah, well, they do. And I think to say that we're now going to move away from the idea of a denuclearized North Korean Korean peninsula is one thing. That is a change of policy. That basically says we now accept that they have nuclear weapons, not just simply that we understand they do.
To be fair to the Admiral, he was saying long term he does still think that denuclearization is the best plan, but he's saying in the short term to say we're never going to let North Korea have them when we already do have them. I think he saw a conflict there, but I understand your point as well. Look, I want to shift gears now to something else that is going to be on your plate as of 11 o'clock today, and that appears to be the fate of 800,000 people, dreamers in this country, immigrants brought to this country when they were children who have been living here now under this legal status because of the executive action from President Obama. President Trump is going to change that as of today. Let me put up on the screen if we can see right now what the president wrote just moments ago about this. He said, Congress, get ready to do your job. DACA, that is the action for dreamers right now. Congress, get ready to do your job. Can you understand, after having watched Congress for the last few years, why these 800,000 people living in the United States might be nervous?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in Congress for the last few years, and the dysfunction's pretty amazing. But I think I'm actually more optimistic that we can get this done than a lot of people I've heard over the weekend talk about it. There's a lot of Republicans, I'd actually say the majority of Republicans that understand that this is important. We have gotten close in the past to a deal with President Obama on immigration, for instance. It was some of the talking heads that you hear on the radio and stuff that really kind of canned that and made it not happen, I think, and scared people. This is something, if the president comes out today and says he's suspending DACA in 6 months, but he hopes Congress gets their act together and puts it into law, I think we get it done. I think it's going to depend on what the tone of the president is. As maybe you know, I've supported the DACA program. I think people that know no other country besides the United States of America can't be sent to a country they don't know. Give them legal status. Let them be productive members of society.
And it may not be from the president that we actually hear any words today on this subject. It's going to be for the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, holding an event at 11 o'clock. Jeff Sessions has had a lot harsher rhetoric about dreamers than the president himself. But we don't know what we're going to hear. We do have to wait on that. But do you think it's fair, again, to start a clock, an hourglass, for these 800,000 people? Why put a time limit on it if, as you say, you think they should stay here anyway? Why not Congress just get to work?
Well, I agree with you. The problem is Congress doesn't get stuff done without a deadline. There's a lot of really good people in Congress, but when it comes to deadlines, that's what happened. I mean, look, we're taking a government shutdown right to the end again because that's how negotiation works. So I think putting a clock on it, although it makes people nervous, and I understand that, I think it's the way to guarantee we get something done, because even if it's 5 months later and this hasn't been dealt with, the idea that 800,000 people that had been basically granted de facto legal status will now be subject to deportation, I think and hope that's going to force us to act, and that's what I'm going to spend the next 6 months.
Again, it's a hope, but what
the broad stuff we have to get done.
Can you guarantee, we've had dreamers on this show over the last hour, can you guarantee that they will be allowed to stay in this country on 6 months plus 1 day?
No, of course I can't guarantee that. I don't see the federal government turning to large roundups of these 800,000. But I can't guarantee anything like that. All I know is this is a situation we find ourselves in. I know what I'm committed to working towards. And I've seen a lot of Republicans, even on CNN this morning, saying they're committed as well. I think if you do a whip count and see the numbers, I think it's there.
Almost every Republican we've spoken to has said they're committed to it. There are others, like Steve King from Iowa, not, but most that we have spoken to, certainly Congressman Kinzinger, are on board with that. Let me ask you this. If the president makes a contingent on funding for his border wall, would you vote for it? Do you think they should be tied?
Well, I don't think they should be tied. They're separate issues. But that said, I support border security. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a wall. I think you can have a virtual wall. I've worked the border with the National Guard. There's a lot of drugs that come over. It's a real issue. I don't think the two should be contingent and tied, but I would support a fix to the DACA program, and I'd also support border funding as well.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, always great to have you on with us. Thanks so much, sir. You have a lot of work to do if you listen to the president right now.